This is a short video on intervals of the real line. So intervals are subsets of the real line, and they're special subsets that can have any of the following forms. So college algebra kind of stuff, when you use parentheses, that means you don't include the endpoints, but you do want all the real numbers in between them. We'll call such an interval open when you use parentheses on both sides. If you use brackets on both sides, that means that you want the endpoints now. Those are inclusive, so we'll call that a closed interval. Whenever you use one on one side and like a parenthesis on the other, then we'll call that half open, or it's the same thing as saying half closed. So half open, half closed, same thing. Fourth, we'll call these infinite opens down here when you use parentheses on both sides, but you have an infinity on the right or you have an negative infinity on the left. So we'll call that an infinite open interval. Number 5, if you use a parenthesis on the real number, so a bracket on the left or a bracket on the right, these are infinite closed intervals. And last, if you had minus infinity to infinity, that's just another way to talk about the real line itself. So just as a note, always use a parenthesis on infinity or negative infinity. Those are not real numbers, right? They're not elements of the set R. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to use a bracket, since bracket would mean it's included in that set. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about what's an interesting way to characterize when you have an interval of the real line. So before the yellow, right, not every subset of the real line has to be a nice interval like 1 through 6 here. So like the union of two intervals need not be an interval. Or if you had like a discrete set like 1, 2, 3, that's not an interval. Or if you want like a really weird and interesting set, look up the Cantor set if you want to go down a rabbit hole. That's definitely not an interval. So intervals are just a nice type of subset of the real line. Anyway, in yellow here, this result characterizes when the set you're dealing with is actually an interval. And the characterizing, I guess that's the right word, property is this star here. If x and y are in your set S, and x is less than y, that implies that the interval from x to y is an S, then S itself has to be an interval. So how would you prove such a thing? So there's 4 cases, and I'm going to prove one case in detail and fill in my picture there with the number line as I go. So case 1, let's suppose that the set S is bounded. So then it's bounded above and below, therefore it has an infimum, which I'll call A, and it has a supremum, which I'll call B. And the point then is that, remember, A is the greatest lower bound for S, and B is the least upper bound. So the point then is that the set S should fit between these two numbers, A and B. It should fit inside this closed interval here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to show that any number between A and B has to be within the set S. So let's let Z be some arbitrary number between A and B. In particular, right, so here's Z. Z is in between A and B. Well, Z is definitely not a lower bound of S, since A is the largest of the lower bounds. So that means that there exists an X that's in my set S, such that X is to the left of Z. So I'll plot that there. All right, since Z is not a lower bound, there should be some members of my set to the left of it. Similarly, Z is not an upper bound, since B is the least of the upper bounds. So that means that there should be an element of my set S that's to the right of Z. And I'll call that Y. So there should be something named Y that's to the right of Z, between Z and B. So the point then is that Z is now contained in this interval from X to Y. But X and Y are two elements of my set, and X is less than Y. Therefore, by this hypothesis star here, the whole interval from X to Y, here to here, should be an element of my set. In particular, that forces Z to be an element of my set. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The interval from X to Y should be a subset of my set S. Therefore, Z should be an element of the set. So what did we just show? Any Z between A and B is an element of S. So since S is contained in that closed interval, but that open interval is contained in S, that means that S has to be one of the following intervals. Just the open one itself, one of the half open ones, or the closed interval from A to B. Now, that was case 1 of this. There's 4 other ones. Case 2 is that S is bounded bounded above, but not below. So still let B be the supremum of the set then, since that exists, since it's bounded above. And then a similar argument shows you that the set S has to be either this infinite open or this infinite closed interval. Case 3, what if it's bounded below but not above? Well, let's let A be the infimum of S, and a similar argument to the one above shows that you're either, again, this infinite open interval or this infinite closed interval. And finally, what if S isn't bounded at all? It's not bounded above or below. Well, then what we're going to show is that S has to be the whole real line then. Well, to show it's the real line, remember the real line's like the universal set. It suffices to show that the universal set's just contained in this one, right? The other containment's free. So let's do that. So let's let Z be an element of the real line. Well, S is not bounded. So what does that tell me? If you pick out a real number z, I should be able to find an element x that's to the left of z, since I'm not bounded below, or s is not bounded below. And if you've got this number z on the real line, you should be able to find a y that's to the right of it, since s is not bounded above. So what do we get then? I get that z is between x and y, so z has to be inside that interval from x to y. But by our hypothesis here, anytime that I have two elements of my set S, where one's to the left of the other, then in fact the whole interval is contained inside the set. So by star, we should have that this whole interval from x to y is contained inside of S. Therefore, z is contained inside of S as well. So what did that do? That finished this little subset proof here. We just showed that any arbitrary element of the real line has to be an element of S. Therefore, that subset inclusion is finished. And that is where I want to stop this